One of my most viral short form videos has been a braided pork loin. It's a cool way of cooking up a whole pork loin, so let's make one today. To start, we've got our ingredients, the star of which is this ginormous whole pork loin. Before I start prepping this up, I just want to point out what a great cut of meat this is. So this whole thing is $13. It is huge, and this is what's used to make pork chops. So if you want to save some money, just buy one of these whole pork loins. You can cut this up into individual pork chops. You can make them as thick or as thin as you want. You can cut out bigger roast size pieces out of it as well and roast them whole, or do the braided method I'm going to show you guys today. But don't sleep on these pork loins because it's a great way to save a bunch of money and have a whole lot of meat for the whole week. Let's get started on prepping our braided pork loin. So again, this is a cool way of cooking up this whole hunk of meat. Makes a great centerpiece if you're entertaining, if you're cooking for a crowd. It's also great with leftovers. So a bunch of different ways of making and prepping a pork loin. So let's start by taking this out of the packaging. Be careful, they're usually pretty liquidy inside, so just be careful with all the pork juices. Just gently open her up, and now we'll pull the whole thing out. Oop, look at that. I mean, wow. Next up, we're gonna pat this whole thing dry. So we just want it to be nice and dry on the outside, help with the seasoning, and it will be just easier to work with because it's not going to be too slippery like it is right now. So just take a couple paper towels, wipe her down, wipe your cutting board. Oh man, look at this. This is 10 pounds of pork for $13. I mean, what a deal. Next up, we're gonna trim this thing up a little bit. So as you can see, it has this kind of a thick silver skin on the outside. So this stuff is super chewy even if we cook it. None of this will render down. So I'm just gonna take my knife and start trimming this away. And just wanna be careful when you trim. You wanna kind of angle your knife upward so you don't cut too much into the meat and just remove the silver skin and not really anything else. So as you can see, there's a little bit of this stringy fat on top, and then you can see the silver skin fibers right there. So take your knife and then just go right in there like that, and then just kind of take your time. Again, angle your knife up to remove as much of this silver skin, and this is kind of what it is, right? So it's super tough. None of this will render down as it's cooking. So we're just gonna clean this thing up because it'll make for a much better final product. Pork loin is trimmed up, so this is kind of all that we cut off, right? So again, mostly just that silver skin, and got a little bit of that meat, but that's okay. So we're just gonna toss all this out. There's nothing that you can do with this stuff. And this is all that you're left with, this nice looking pork loin. Okay, so now we're gonna braid this thing up. So the idea is we're gonna cut it into 3 strands connected at the top, and then we're gonna braid them together, kind of like if you're braiding someone's hair, and that'll be it. So it doesn't really matter which side you start on. Let me turn this cutting board this way so you guys can see a little better. Let's cut this up. Take your knife and just kind of visualize 3 sections. So we're gonna make 2 cuts. We're gonna leave the top maybe 6 inches whole, and we're gonna start the cut kind of from this side, roughly here and here. You want the 3 strands to be nice and even. The more equal size they are, the more evenly they're gonna cook. So that's always kind of the main thing to keep in mind whenever you're cooking or smoking something big or like a whole pork loin. Just nice, even things cook evenly. We'll start right over here, right? Cut through, and then we'll cut all the way to the end. Okay, look at that. We'll go with another pass. There we go. And now we're gonna separate this one too, just about here. Okay. It's 11 o'clock. Church bells are ringing. I'm not sure if you guys can hear those. Those bells always ring when we're filming. Boom, look at that. See, so this is kind of what you have. It's like a pork loin octopus. Next up, we're gonna hit this thing with a little olive oil. This will help the seasoning stick to our meat a little better. Just go with a nice drizzle and then just kind of massage that in a little bit. You can use other binders too. You can use a hot sauce, Worcestershire, really whatever floats your boat. This is primarily just to help the seasoning stick, not so much for flavor, so it doesn't really matter what you use. Look at this thing. So cool. It's just such a cool thing to make. You put this thing out on a table once it's done, and it looks awesome, and it's kind of fun to eat, and I don't know, I like doing this. And finally, we're gonna season it up. So I'm using my all-purpose rub. Really, any barbecue seasoning here will work, whatever flavor profile you're going with. So we're gonna hit it with the barbecue seasoning first, and then at the end, we're going to glaze it with a homemade barbecue sauce. It's a perfect combo on pork. See, now that we're seasoning it after it's been cut up, you can get into all these side pieces, get all the sides nicely coated. Depending on what rub you're using, you can go pretty heavy with them. This is 10 pounds of pork. It can handle the seasoning. So I had about a half a bottle to start, so I used about a quarter of this big shaker bottle. So again, don't be stingy with your seasoning. This is a lot of meat. It can take the rub, so go heavy with it. But this is looking pretty good. It's seasoned up, so just pick it up and shake off any excess. And now we can get to the braiding. Now, I have a daughter, so I know how to braid hair, I think pretty well. But if you are not a girl dad or have no idea how to braid hair, this is how you start. So you've got the 3 strands. Take the outside one. We're gonna put this in the middle. Now take the one from the opposite side and put this one in the middle. And now repeat this process. Outside in the middle, and again outside in the middle. See, and our braid is starting to form. Outside in the middle, and outside to the middle. There you go. See, have this beautiful pork braid. You can tighten these up just a little bit. They're gonna shrink as this thing is cooking anyways, but I like to keep it nice and tight to secure the end. I've got a couple wooden skewers, so just gonna go right here through the pork, and then another one from this side. There you have it. Our pork loin is braided up, and this thing this thing is looking really good. I'm gonna let this pork loin hang out, let it sweat a little bit, let the seasoning start to get absorbed. So now we're gonna fire up the grill and get everything ready. For this cook, we're gonna be using the large big green egg. Should be big enough to fit our nice pork loin, and we're gonna be cooking it at indirect heat, right? Meaning we're gonna have the plate setter in, so it's more of a smoking, roasting process rather than grilling. We're gonna get a little lower temperature to infuse as much smoke into this as possible, and then we'll add that barbecue sauce at the very end. So let's get this ready. And just like last time, you can see the leftover coals from our last cook. So just shake off the ashes. We'll add some fresh lump to top it all off. And to start, I'm going to use these 2 starter cubes. There's a bunch of different ways you can use to start these grills, but this works pretty well. So just take these and put them right, and take our lighter and start these guys up. Grill is up to temperature, so let's take our braided pork loin gently. It's like a little pork baby. Let's just slide this guy right on the grill. Ooh, wow, look at that. 300 degrees indirect heat. Now, if you're doing this on a different grill, let's say maybe you have a gas grill, start your burners on one side and put this on the other side of the grill for that indirect heat zone. Or if you're doing this inside, get your oven to 300 degrees and pop this on. Even though I'm doing all my recipes on the grill, you can apply the same techniques to any cooker that you have, or even the oven. So let's close this up. This should take probably about an hour and a half to fully cook through, but we'll come back to this in a little bit. We'll check on it. Pork is on, so let's get started on our barbecue sauce. You can, of course, use a store-bought one if you've got a favorite one, but I'm going to show you guys how super easy it is to make a homemade sauce. You can adjust the ratios to make it exactly how you like it. I also got some new pans. These are from Hexclad, these fancy online pans. I've been seeing a bunch of people using these, so far I'm liking them, but we'll see how they are in the long term. First up, we're going to go in with some brown sugar. So this is going to be about a half a cup or so. This is my kind of standard recipe for barbecue sauce. I will have this recipe on the website as well, but you can just kind of eyeball it as well. Doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, you can adjust the ratios as you're making it or as it's finishing up. Next, we'll go with some ketchup. Again, about a quarter cup or so. Next, we've got some molasses. This is what's going to help the sauce get nice and thick and sticky and super flavorful. So about 2 tablespoons of molasses. A little apple cider vinegar out of my gallon jug. A couple tablespoons. So help give it a little tanginess and cut through all the sweetness. We've got a little honey next. About a couple tablespoons. A couple dashes of Worcestershire. Give it that umami flavor. And we're also going to go with some Chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. So we're just going to use the sauce in this recipe. So it's more of a Chipotle barbecue sauce. So just open up this can and just take your spoon and just spoon out some of the sauce. Go with a couple tablespoons, leaving the whole Chipotle peppers in here. You can also take these guys out and chop them up or throw them in a blender if you want to use more of it or get more of that Chipotle flavor. Using just the onions and the sauce is enough for me. Give it a squeeze of lemon juice. Now here's a little trick for squeezing out lemon juice. You don't need to cut your lemons in half. You can just cut on the side like this, right? So mostly your lemon stays intact. You have this little side piece, and then just squeeze this in for the right amount of lemon juice. And last, we'll add some of my all-purpose barbecue seasoning. This will kind of flavor everything. And this is looking really good. Now just kind of whisk this together. I'm going to bring this inside and simmer this over medium heat. Let this thicken up a little bit more, and it's going to be a delicious Chipotle barbecue sauce. I do need to get one of these outside little burners. I've talked about this before, to kind of be able to make this stuff out here without having to bring it inside. So if you guys have any recommendations for like these little single burners, stove things, let me know. Leave a comment, let me know what I should get, because it will make things a whole lot easier. Ooh, it smells really nice. Here, try it out. And on the stove it goes. We'll get this going. So again, kind of low, medium heat, just for a couple minutes. It's going to reduce just a little bit, thicken up a little bit more, and then I'm going to glaze the pork at the very end with the sauce. All right, pork has been on for about an hour and a half. Our sauce is also ready, looking nice and sticky. So right now it's temping at about 125 internal in the thickest part. My goal is to sauce it up now and cook it until it hits about 135 internal. Then we'll pull it off, rest it, and it's gonna climb up to 145, which is the safe eating temp for pork, and it's still gonna stay nice and juicy inside. So let's take a look. Ooh, wow, that looks really good. I'm just gonna brush this on a little bit. Probably take another 10 minutes or so to finish cooking. Sauce will caramelize by then, get nice and sticky on the outside. Let's close that up. Main thing when cooking pork, especially a pork loin, because it's a very lean cut, is to not to overcook it. If you take it any higher than 145, it's gonna dry out, it's gonna be kind of tough, not very pleasant. Cook it to below 145, rest it, and I guarantee you it's gonna be perfect. Pork hit temperature, it's temping right around 135. Look at this thing, look how nice this looks. So we'll take it off. I got a couple spatulas to make it a little bit easier. Slide these boys right in. Oh, wow. All right, here we come. Oh, wow. Pork loin is resting, so let's pour out the rest of our delicious Chipotle sauce. Serve this on the side. Sauce is delicious, by the way. It's a perfect mix of sweet, spicy, get that smokiness from those Chipotle peppers. So now we can slice this thing up. I mean, but just look how nice this looks, right? Like if you're having a dinner party, having people over, you put this big old pork loin on the table and it just looks awesome. We finished this with a barbecue sauce, but you can really cook it any way you'd like. Any flavor profile here with pork. It's pork, so it's super versatile. So let's just cut right into it. Let's just go right here. Go for the money shot. See how we did. Look at that. Yeah, that thing is nice and juicy. So now look, let's just cut a couple slices off. Man, this pork is glistening in the sun. I'm not sure how well you can see this on the video, but this is really good. Again, that's making sure that you cook it to the right temperature, you don't overcook it, and you're going to have some delicious porky goodness. And all this for about $14. I mean, you really can't go wrong with it. All right, let's just cut a piece right here and we'll try it out. Get a little bit of the sauce. I mean, just look how it's just glistening. A little smoke ring on the outside. Let's try it out. Wow. Yeah, perfect tenderness. Nice little kick from that barbecue sauce. Mild smoky flavor. This is really good eating. If you cook your pork to the proper internal temperature, you don't overcook it, it's delicious. It's just super tender, very flavorful, nice and juicy, and it's so much food, again, for not a lot of money. Dip it in a little bit of that sauce, a little extra flavor. This is legit amazing. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, let me know what you want to see me cook next, and I'll hang out here, finish eating my delicious braided pork loin, and I'll see you guys next time.